Welcome to the preview for round 6 between North Melbourne and Carlton. Good Friday football under the roof of Marvel Stadium. The Jumper Punch preview is here. Like, subscribe, leave a comment down below. We're going to get stuck into this big preview of Good Friday football. Actually, really looking forward to this clash, despite being a little bit unsatisfied with what happened last weekend. But we move along. Friday afternoon football. Should be a big crowd there. Hopefully it's a sellout. Interesting game between these two teams. North Melbourne have been struggling for the majority of the season, and the same can be said for our boys, at least on the results front. I'm going to do a comparison with regards to just some matchups I think are key. We're yet to have teams recording this on a Wednesday afternoon. Teams will be, of course, released on Thursday evening. Can confirm that we are expecting Elijah Hollands to come back into the team. So we'll await for absolute confirmation of that. But I think he is definitely going to be a much welcomed addition to that Carlton half forward line and roaming through midfield at various bits and pieces of this game as well. But if we go back to the history of these two teams of recent times anyway, Carlton has obviously had the wood over North Melbourne, no doubt about that. If we date back to this particular game last year, Carlton absolutely dominated North Melbourne for the majority of the match. But the second time we played these lads last season, North Melbourne actually darted clear just after half time. And it was looking a little hairy for a while in that game. It was when we started that form funk and that complete dip off at the back end of last season. And if it wasn't for Charlie Curnow in that match, we might have struggled to get over the line. So just some Oppo analysis. Looking at North Melbourne this season, in particular their last game against the Gold Coast Suns, as much as the scoreboard reflected what looked to be a one-sided victory in favour of Gold Coast, who are going great guns at the moment, this game actually wasn't as bad as the scoreboard suggested. North Melbourne showed a real, not just an appetite for the contest, but a real appetite to move the ball with flair and with zip. And it was something similar to the Adelaide game a couple of weeks ago, where they were happy to risk conceding goals out the back in a bid to play an attacking and offensive brand of football, a brand of football that I think will be sustainable in the long run, but maybe just not with the cattle they've got at the moment. So looking at scores from turnover for North Melbourne in the last 2 weeks, especially last week, they are very, very vulnerable from turnover. And granted, Gold Coast was very accurate. Scores from their defensive half last week was 11-1-67, and scores off turnover, they managed 11-8-74. So the turnover game for North Melbourne is where they struggle at the moment, especially defensively. And that's understandable too, given they've got some young midfielders, aside from maybe Davies Uniacke and Parker, who can all roll through there. But their back six is definitely has a big question mark over it. And we can exploit North Melbourne's back six. There's no doubt about that, irrespective of how poor our forward line is going at the moment. But just want to compare apples to apples and look back at the game last season. Now, we will have a completely different team to what we fielded the second time we played North Melbourne, and the same can be said for the Kangaroos as well. But having said that, North Melbourne and the way in which they play can be a bit of kryptonite for us. And Clarko's insistence on using the switch, using that diagonal switch, is something that the Blues need to be wary of. We made a big song and dance about it last season when we played against Hawthorn. Clarkson and Mitchell, of course, from I wouldn't say a similar vein of thinking, but obviously they have a long, storied history together, and a lot of their philosophy and a lot of their tactics and a lot of their game style, I wouldn't say is completely similar, but Mitchell, of course, is derived from that Clarko school of thinking, and he was developed and brought up by Alistair Clarkson. So a lot of the Clarko influence, of course, is definitely going to impact the way in which Sam Mitchell coaches. And I think from our point of view, if you look back to that game against North Melbourne last season, they used that diagonal switch really, really well. And they actually hurt us at scores from stoppage, which we suspect and we know is actually a real strength of ours. Granted, last season, Hewitt was in and out of the team. Chera was obviously coming off injury complaints. There were a few chops and changes in midfield that didn't really help us. Tom De Koning was also injured in this game last season against North Melbourne. So we were, look, no excuses last season. We did end up winning, but as Mars always says, we were in a dogfight with North Melbourne, and that was the telltale sign that our season was dwindling away. But it's early in the season. We don't really have a whole lot of fitness complaints aside from, unfortunately, three season-ending injuries. Brodie Kemp confirmed that he will miss the rest of the season with that Achilles rupture. And he was just starting to build into some goal-scoring form. I don't think it was great against the West Coast Eagles, and we won't know how that experiment up forward is going to work because he won't be playing now. But he only really had that one game against the Western Bulldogs. And outside of that, I don't really think we could say that venture forward worked. But again, we only have a really small sample size to deal with. So it's unfortunate for him. Just on North Melbourne and the comparison in game styles in this particular fixture, if you notice against West Coast, they use that far side wing to exploit where we left a lot of space. And look, granted, we won a lot of the territory. Of course, you want to play a front half game. That's just obvious. That's the most sustainable model in AFL. You still have to be able to move the ball out of your back half. You've got to be good in all phases. You've got to be good in the final third. You've got to be good in the center. You've got to be good out of your back half as well. All the best teams are good at all facets and all phases of the game. They're all generalizers. They don't just specifically absolutely nail down one thing. They're good at everything. And that's the football team we need to become. And there were patches last year where I thought we were that. But maybe the fact that the talent just dwindled away and was injured at the back end of last season is why it's fallen away. But there are obviously other factors with regards to our form dropping off and our form being so horrendous to start this season. Having said that, West Coast did exploit that outer side, which I find fascinating. And maybe North Melbourne will use that as a blueprint in an attempt to move the ball to that area of the ground, the far side wing. It was away from the broadcast side. So it will be interesting to see which side of the ground North Melbourne do think is a weak point for our team, because West Coast did on a few occasions from deep out of their back half move the ball quite sprightly on transition and with great effect despite not hitting the scoreboard. I think it was a game that North Melbourne would look at and think, look, probably a training drill for the Blues, but there are definitely areas of weakness. And we all know it. We all know that Carlton, and I know people are making, I'm in a completely different vein of thinking when it comes to the way in which the club is defending at the moment and with the way in which we're defending on the field. A lot of people are saying that Carlton are actually defending well. I think the back 6 and 7 is holding up okay under a lot of pressure. But I think as a collective and as a team, I actually think we're defending poorly. I don't think we're defending well at all. And it's lapses, it's loss of concentration. Mitch McGovern was victim of it again on the weekend. And we weren't really asked to defend a hell of a lot on the weekend. And if you go back and look at West Coast efficiency actually going forward, their shots per inside 50 was actually better than ours. So, look, I don't know how much of a gauge you can get on how much or how you can weigh that up into how we are defending. But I do take that not as a premium because it's only one particular statistic. But when I saw that number, it sort of married up with the eye test because West Coast did move the ball too easily on occasion in that game last week. And North Melbourne are a far better outfit than what West Coast are. And there's no way knowing that they're going to be gifting the middle of the ground and gifting the corridor and leaving us so much space in between their defensive lines for us to move in between. That's not going to be the case on Friday. And there's going to be a lot more pressure in this game. And we need to really think our way through it and continue to take those risky inboard kicks and continue to push the ball forward and continue to use those handball chains. Continue to do what Matt Carroll did. Provide that great overlap. Provide help to your teammates. Rather than disposing of the ball ahead of you and waiting, dispose of the ball and run ahead. See if you can provide support to your teammate. I don't think we do enough of that, especially in the handball chains. When you're trying to look after guys like Ollie Hollands and Adam Sard. Now Matt Carroll is providing a little bit more run and carry. He seems to be a hybrid type, which I think we can really utilise against North Melbourne. I'd like to see him get a patch of games. Of course, it has to be warranted through form, no doubt about that. But I'd like to see him get a patch of games over the next fortnight to 3 weeks and He's got a great size about him too. That's one thing I think that has taken people. I don't think it's people have been taken aback by his size, but he has definitely grown into his frame over the last couple of months, which is a sign that the man is as professional as they come. He understands what the modern game requires. He's adept at the level as well, just with regards to the way in which he reads the ball. I think he's going to be a really important player in this game. I want to go over the midfield, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know how you think this battle will fare up. Do you think Cripps goes to Davies-Uniacke? Is that going to be a direct battle? Or will Carlton try to go with that defensive bias and throw George Hewitt? Because we've seen George Hewitt be an outlet this year, which I'm not the biggest fan of, because I actually think that's part of our inefficiency. As much as he gets the ball and as much as he's a brilliant player with regards to his work rate and his professionalism and his work ethic, I actually do think we leave a lot of attacking prowess out on the ground when he is the outlet of the forward handball. I don't really like him playing that role. I prefer him being a lot more defensive bias and us having a few more attacking players in there. But then the question has to be asked: what attacking players do you throw in there? Do we have that midfield mix? It would probably have been Jagger Smith, but it's not him, unfortunately. So from my end, what I'm looking at now is how can Carlton utilise a point of difference in midfield against a team that is going to be far better in that facet of the game and far better in that area of the field than what West Coast was last week. So there are going to be more question marks or more questions asked of our players and our coaches this week. I have no doubt about that. North Melbourne, they're a proud club. They may not have been up where they want to be over the last couple of seasons, but they will be up for this Good Friday clash, no doubt about it. I know they've only won one, I think, of their last 7 Good Friday clashes. Their form, at least from a winning perspective, has not been great in this particular fixture. But given what they did in the second game we played against them last season, they'll have some sort of belief that they can get the job done. And they've got 2 experienced players in the form of Darling and Parker, who are in good nick. Physically, they look sound. Luke Parker's been really good for North this season too. And he knows a thing or two about beating Carlton, does Luke Parker. So the midfield battle is going to be one of great intrigue. We said last week on this particular preview that Carlton's midfield had a massive edge, had a big edge over West Coast, and that's what bore fruit at Adelaide Oval last weekend. Our midfield set the tone for the whole game. They got their hands on the ball first. They almost walked through the West Coast midfield, and Carlton are not going to have that this weekend. No doubt about that. So we have been really inefficient this season, whether that's getting shots away from our inside 50s, whether that's scoring on transition, whether that's scoring from centre bounce, whether that's scoring from forward 50 stoppage, and whether that's stopping teams from going back the other way as well. The D50 stoppage scores that we concede, we may not have conceded a hellhole of a lot of them, but it's, and people will say, oh, Carlton have not actually conceded a lot of points this season. Our opponents have actually not got past a ton and haven't kicked a lot of goals. But it's not necessarily how much you concede, but it's how you concede, which is what is frustrating me at the moment and why I continue to push, not the narrative, but push the idea and the fact that I do think it's a fact, I think we lack defensive discipline. That's a big bugbear of mine at the moment. And until that is rectified, you're never going to get it 100% right. But I want to see a far better work ethic on the defensive end from our whole team. And when I speak about defensive, I don't just mean running back. I mean pressing forward, especially our forwards as well, providing that pressure, staying high up the ground. You know, it takes bravery to be able to do that. And we need to see that more often. That's when we're playing our best football and providing that overlap run. Defense also is about managing the ball. And I know I've said that it's probably not a strong suit of ours to slow the game down, but you need to have that facet. And I think in parts of this game, to kill North Melbourne off, as much as we need to move the ball aggressively and get the ball to Charlie Curnow and our tall targets and let Tom De Koning use his physicality and his aerial prowess and his ability around the ball to be able to thrust us forward and help us out. I think sometimes the best form of defense is actually just holding sway with ball in hand and knocking the ball about, moving the arc and just taking the sting out of the game, which is something I think we've really struggled with this season. Because even when that phase of play does eventuate, you should still be able to score from that, rather than going at a million miles an hour, you should still be able to pick your way through a team. I'm not talking about being specifically precise. That is part of it. But on my end, I'm looking at when we go into game management phase and we have to gear down from sixth or fifth gear to fourth, third, we need to be able to score and limit opposition in those phases of play, because you can't go gung-ho for 100% of the match. So that's an area we need to continue to work on. The game management phase for us is going to be important in this game. It's going to be important for us in the season. Whether or not you can work on that, as Michael Voss says, with repetition, we'll have to wait and see. The evidence will be in what we produce over the next couple of weeks. But on this particular match, I think we have a clear edge with regards to our key forwards and their key backs. Charlie Combin did cause a few little headaches for us last season when he shifted forward. But I think Charlie Curnow, irrespective of the fact that he doesn't have his partner in crime, Harry Mackay, out there, and Brodie Kemp is going to miss the season. I think Lewis Young will come in. Whether or not they go with Young up forward or Silvani up forward, I don't think they're going to upset that stability and that cohesion in the back line after what we saw last week, albeit the back line didn't really have to do a hell of a lot, although they were a lot more committed to the cause. McGovern was throwing his body around like a madman, and I think Jack has settled down back. And the only reason I'd see Jack Silvani going forward is if it's dire straits, and we don't want that against North Melbourne. We need to get the win in this game, goes without saying clearly. So I think Elijah Hollands will come back into the team. I've no doubt about that. That'll be confirmed on Thursday night when team news comes out. So by all reports and from what I'm hearing, he's definitely going to be playing, which is great. I think we need his talent. I think we need his underrated work rate. And I think we need his nous ball in hand as well. He's a very, very special footballer, as Elijah Hollands. I think he's one of our most talented players. And hopefully he's all okay. He's got his head right. He's got himself into a good frame of mind. And he returns to the team in good, solid form and puts in a good showing, because when he does, we're a better football team for it. I've no doubt about that. So, look, North Melbourne will pose a lot of threats. And there, as much as I am and have been optimistic in this preview, because the numbers, I mean, to a certain point, stack up in our favour, right? And in comparison, if we can get that forward efficiency right, which has been a problem rife in this team so far this season, then we can definitely win this game. I get a funny feeling North Melbourne are going to win this. And that's based purely on the fact that I don't think they were as bad as people think they were against Gold Coast, irrespective of what the scoreboard may have said at the end of 4 quarters in that particular fixture. Look, I will tip the Blues for the preview, of course, but just hold tight. I do fear for what could come in this game. Akers should come back into the team as well. Forgot to mention him. He was crook last week. And, of course, we'll be missing Harry Mackay. But geez, if we can't win this game, ladies and gentlemen, if we're not on Struggle Street already, we're definitely on the Uber, or in the Uber on the way there if we're down by a couple of goals at 3/4 time. And if we lose, the Uber's going to drop us off on Struggle Street and give us a kick up the backside and push us out, and he's going to charge us triple the fare for a cleanup fee. So let me know what your predictions are for this game. Leave a comment, like, subscribe, share this video around. If you've got an idea into what you think the matchups are going to be, where we can exploit North Melbourne, where you think North Melbourne can exploit us, let us know. I think this game is going to be a lot closer than people think. Hopefully it's a packed crowd at Marvel Stadium. And the one thing that I really want to happen, because this is what my heart is telling me, and my head for that matter, and the head for that matter as well, I want Carlton to win this game really well. So then we can, and I said it in that West Coast preview, so then we can get into that Sunday home game, primetime football against Geelong, at the MCG with a buzz, a winning buzz, and a proper walk through the Fitzroy Gardens, or from Punt Road, or wherever you're coming from, Brunton Avenue, on the way to the G with a packed MCG for a home game against Geelong. That's what I want to occur. Hopefully it does. we'll go Blues by 16 points. Like, subscribe, comment, leave your predictions below. We'll chat on the Jumper Punch on Tuesday, and we'll chat during the review. Go Blues.